Good evening. This is Bilgute Tumundimbril with Today. As you all know, we have always guest time on Saturday, and I have invited very interesting guests to our table. John Davis is a media artist from the United States. He's a Northern Californian musician and filmmaker, building on relationship between moving image and sound through live performance and studio-based works. He's also an educator at San Francisco Art Institute, University of California, San Francisco State University, and many other institutions. Good evening. Thank you for receiving our invitation.
Thank you.
So let's start from the reason you are here in Mongolia.
So I'm here to collaborate with my colleague Stefan Rusu, who is residing in Bishkek right now. He's from Moldova. We met in 2001 at a festival in Amsterdam. I was showing some of my video work, and he invited me to come to Chisinau, Moldova, to do a short residency program. And while I was there, we decided to hatch a plan to do a found footage workshop, which now is in its third iteration here in Mongolia. Iteration of the Arts Council, and so they were able to acquire the funds necessary to bring us over and help realize the project.
Because you're an educator as well, about the project, what's the purpose of the project? And tell us, what's the role of art in society?
So the purpose of the project is to try to inspire younger artists and students to work with archival, appropriated, or found footage media resources, primarily media that's in sort of the popular cultural domain, like television, film, broadcasting media, but also archival media like films from the early part of the 20th century, media that's sort of undergoing digitization process. So essentially they're encouraged to use anything they want as a way to inspire maybe a new way of responding to the past and the present by using material that's, rather than relying on or featuring original material, it would be a combination of their own original material with this archival, appropriated, or found footage material.
Interesting.
And the second part of your question, in terms of the importance of art in society, that's a big question, obviously. But I think personally, as an artist and an educator, it's an essential part of kind of the overall socio-cultural framework because it allows for an interpretive voice and an analysis of what's happening politically, socially, culturally, and then also personally. In an unmediated, unmitigated way, it allows for an individual voice to respond to what's happening, again, culturally and socially and personally. And this perspective, I think, in a broad social way, allows for a much healthier and a much more kind of like, it encourages kind of a more open society, more open
relationships
between people, understanding. But the importance of art can't be understated, really, because obviously it's oftentimes new ways of understanding ourselves and how we connect to others and how we create meaning through symbolic forms and that kind of thing. So in a free, open society like Mongolia, it's really important, obviously, to encourage the arts, and to provide a platform like this one.
So from there, that's from the art perspective.
Yeah.
How about the responsibility of artists in society? Do they have responsibility?
Yeah, I think that also a complicated question, but certainly each individual artist has to ask themselves that question, and hopefully through education and experience, they come to realize that they're not operating in a void, that they're connected to everything and everyone, and that it's my belief, my opinion, that artwork should contain some sort of connection to the broader social framework, and that artists should be thinking that way. That they, although obviously artists are working individually and they're creating things, albeit through collaboration with other artists or in groups of artists. They're working kind of on their own, separate from everybody else, but at the same time, that work, the importance of that work, it's important to share the work and communicate as a way to kind of open up a dialogue for new ideas, new information.
The reason I asked this question is it seems, from my perspective, in Mongolia, artists are doing, some artists, not all of them, many artists tend to do art just for the money.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's very commercial, and that's why I asked the question.
Also a complicated question and a complicated issue, because at least in the U.S., and I'm sure here too, artists face
financial trouble.
Financial hardship, because there isn't a lot of support nationally, statewide. Although there is support, it's very competitive, and there isn't a lot of funding, especially federally, for the arts in general. But that's also a two-sided coin, because I think that the limited resources and kind of the tension that exists between having to be resourceful and like that. That necessity is the mother of invention, to use a phrase. That oftentimes, under kind of difficult circumstances, the artwork can tend to be more fruitful, because people are really there for the right reason. They're not doing it necessarily for the money. But then, of course, people have to survive, and so there's a difficult balance between.
I think just need to find a balance.
A balance, between making work that is sellable, that's marketable. Certainly that involves educating a marketplace, so to speak. So like where I'm from in San Francisco, there's a new economy through the technology industry. And a lot of that money isn't necessarily, I think, as sensitive to or aware of a lot of the art, the broader arts landscape. And one of the goals of fundraisers and people who are trying to get that money kind of interested in contemporary art and to help support, and feed the community so that it can continue to prosper. But it's a two-sided coin. It's a delicate balance.
Delicate balance.
Because we all need to survive.
That's for sure. And let's talk about Mongolia, because it's your first time here. What's the difference between your expectation and reality in Mongolia? Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Some people imagine Mongolia as well, it happened to me. Some people ask me, do you ride horse to your work, etc. But what was the expectation?
Yeah, it's a good question. I had done some research and obviously had been online and tried to gather as much information as I could about the current state of Mongolia. I think in a general sense, kind of the maybe misperception, at least in the West and certainly in North America, for those who've not traveled here, is that it's a little more provincial and traditional, and a lot of the images that we see and a lot of the information we get is more about kind of the older style Mongolian lifestyle, cultural lifestyle, and nomadic tribal stuff, and those are very picturesque images, and those are great stories, and we know about Genghis Khan and Genghis Khan and all that stuff. But digging a little deeper, I knew that the city was very cosmopolitan and very much developing, if not already developed, kind of country, and so I wasn't really quite sure what to expect. But arriving here, I've come to discover that the country's very sophisticated, very modern, very developed, and very well educated, I think, on the whole. And the students that we have are amazing, way beyond my expectations. I wasn't, again, really quite sure what to expect, but I've come to discover that you guys have a lot to offer and a lot going on, and are really curious, and also too the interesting thing about coming to places that have the sort of post-Soviet reality, you know, seeing how they are moving forward in terms of capitalism and kind of like reshaping and rethinking what it means to be Mongolian in the 21st century, you know, with materialism and all the things that are possible and available in the world. And so it's really fascinating to see how and also through this project, I think the students are kind of working out some of these ideas too, how to move forward with the past in mind and the future.
Ahead.
Ahead,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Well, it would be a mistake if we don't talk about your personal art. And tell us about one of your recent art project, and the story behind,
Sure.
because it's very interesting how the art became the art.
So my background's in photography. I started getting into moving images and sound and music while I was in graduate school at the San Francisco Art Institute. And from then on, I've really kind of left the photography behind and continued on with moving image stuff and music. And I do a lot of collaborative work. So because I'm in both worlds, in the music and the film, moving image stuff, I often do live performance work. And so I'll, for example, play music to a filmmaker or sometimes show my own films and have musicians perform music. And this falls under a kind of loose genre of expanded cinema, which is kind of has a history in the 1970s, avant-garde American cinema, and it kind of fell out of favor, and it's having a bit of a resurgence now. Especially, I work specifically with film, celluloid film, which, as you probably know, it was on the brink of disappearing, essentially. But because of this resurgence, companies like Kodak are actually starting to remanufacture film stocks that they stopped making. A lot of people are interested in kind of preserving this medium, this analog technology.
It's good.
Yeah, it's real good. And so a recent project that I did was called Gravity Spells, Bay Area music and expanded cinema art, which was kind of a way, it was I received a fellowship and a residency through a program called Kala Art Institute in Berkeley, California. And they gave me a little bit of money and a lot of time and resources. And my goal was to kind of produce something that kind of referenced the live cinema experience or this expanded cinema experience, but in sort of a tangible form. And so I commissioned 4 musicians and 4 filmmakers to produce works collaboratively, and the final product was a double LP album record that had 4 DVDs inside, and it was all hand silk screened by myself, an edition of 100, very limited. And the idea was that though the record and the DVD were the artists were paired together, you could interchange the media. So for example, you could have any of the filmmakers play with any of the sound works, so as to have this kind of like chance element and kind of the broader collaborative sense, which my work tends to be about. And so another example is, so you would obviously have to have a turntable, a phonograph, and a DVD player, but for example, you would drop the needle on the record player, hit play on your DVD player, and it's always going to be different. It's never going to start at the same time. So you'll always have this sort of chance element, which is a big part of...
And it's every time you play it, it could be new.
It could be a little different,
Yeah,
it's never going to be the same thing. And you can
different
interchange the films with the music. And so
very interesting.
Yeah, it was just a way of kind of like celebrating the work that's happening currently in the Bay Area. There's also a booklet. And then there was an additional performance series that happened in the month of July. Each weekend I had the headliners as the paired artists on the release, the LP, and then invited 3 other artists who work in expanded cinema. So there were 4 acts over 4 nights in the month of July, which was kind of a celebration of the project. So that's a good example of a recent project that I'm very proud of.
Wow, that's very interesting project. I've never heard about that idea, to mixing up the footage with music and changing in and out. Well, you are doing workshop today here at our station, right, with your people. participants of the project. Tell us about it. What are you doing today?
Yeah, so the project is loosely titled Urban Nomads, and it's about migration and mobility. And so it's, again, a loose conceptual theme that encouraged the participants to kind of think about what migration means. And obviously that's important here in Ulaanbaatar and in the country in general, as a lot of people move from the countryside to live in the city to get more economic possibilities, resources, and so on. And so this is an ongoing sort of reality that people face. So the workshop was designed to kind of, so we designed to kind of work with those themes. And so we invited the participants to submit project proposals that considered those aspects of society. And so we got a lot of great proposals, but obviously over the course of the 2 weeks, those are going to change a little bit. The first week we showed a lot of examples of contemporary works that use found footage and archival media, appropriated media as well, in hopes that we could inspire and get people thinking maybe a little differently than they might be here, and try to bring material that they might have not seen or had access to from North America, Europe, and so on. And so now we're moving into our second week. We received a lot of archival material from the State Film Archive.
State Film Archive.
And we're here today to work with some of your colleagues who have a 16 millimeter project downstairs where they're transferring a huge cache of 16 millimeter films, many of them untitled, that they're just kind of like discovering what's there. And they have some really beautiful and amazing equipment, state-of-the-art stuff, and they're doing a really great job. And I think now in a year's time, they've digitized 1% of this archive, so they have a lot of work ahead of them.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we have limited time. It's only 20 minutes, and if we talk, we can talk further, a lot more stuff. And
Sure.
Thank you for very interesting takes on so many topics.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And thank you for educating people here.
Yeah, no, again, it's my pleasure and a great honor to be here. It's been wonderful so far, and I love your country, and you guys are great. Thank you.
Well, come back again.
I will, yeah.
All right.
All right, thank you very much.
That's all for today. Thank you for being with us. You're watching MM Today. We will see you on next Tuesday with more news. Have a good one. Bye-bye.